Abdul Karim, a young prison clerk from Agra, on his way to daily routine of his work. His head of the work called upon him all of a sudden and is instructed to travel to England for Queen Victoria's, Dame Judi Dench's, Golden Jubilee in 1887. He got select because he is tall and present her with a mohur, a gold coin which has been minted as a token of appreciation from British-ruled India. He met a new friend on his way to travel to England. On his way his superior explained him to deliver the mohur coin, but specially he was instructed to not to hold eye contact with Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria is old woman and she is very lazy to get up in the morning, her servants doing a major work to get ready her for daily schedule. While Muhammad speaking about how tough it's going to be in England due to cold, finally they were landed on English soil and took them in to take measurement for their new suits. They were again instructed how to present it and they did a trial version of presenting the mohur. Moment of the truth, here comes Abdul with mohur coin and it was presented to the Queen while Queen has no idea, but Abdul did exactly he was instructed, but he did lock eyes with Queen due to tension and Queen also looked at him.
In the next day while Sir Henry was explaining what's Queen's schedule for today, Queen asked about the man who looked at her and she said she wants to meet him again and she reminds he was terribly handsome. One of servants went to call them while they were packing to leave India and they were called again to present for Queen. In here they were again instructed not to look at her and do what she says without asking any questions, but all of sudden Abdul bent and kissed her feet, then she was shocked but it made her happy, but Abdul's superior was pissed off. He dragged Abdul outside and asked, why did you do it? Then Abdul said, I did it because it will cheer up. Then Sir Henry came and said Queen requested Abdul and his friend to be her personal footman in the rest of the Jubilee. That's how their friendship start. In the meantime they are getting acquaintance about each other, but Abdul cannot keep his mouth shut. He started to talk about what he was doing in India. He was telling to her that he was the one who chose carpets from India to lay on here. In the next day Queen also called upon to Abdul to serve her in the outside, but her original servants didn't like it at all. They were gossiping and secretly spy on them, while Abdul was talking about Indian history and foods. One day Queen asked from Abdul to teach Hindi language, but Abdul resisted when Queen asked why. He said instead of learning Hindi you should learn Urdu, because you were the Empress of India. Then Queen loved the idea and started to take private lessons from him, then she learnt to quite bit of it. While her servants were spying on those two, her son confronted her about taking lessons from a servants. She said, I am the Queen, I can do whatever I like. Then she and Abdul went a private trip to cottage to learn more about Indian culture and language so her servants cannot spy on them. In later Queen made Abdul her munsai, in other words her teacher, so he is not a servant anymore. After this Queen in her company with Muki and his friend went to Florence city in Italy. After they went to Florence Queen gave a golden pendant with her picture to him admiring his service. Later that night private singer sang to her. Not only that, Abdul insisted her to sing as well. At first she was shy but then she sang a song and everyone loved it. Because of that joy Queen was dancing with Abdul and told him, I was never happy like this before. After that Abdul said that he has a wife in his country. Then Queen got angry. She said, why didn't you tell me before? Abdul replied, because you never asked before. Queen immediately dispatched him, go to his wife and come back here with her. Then Abdul went. In after weeks Abdul came back. The whole palace went see him from the windows. Abdul first exist from the cart, then with two other masked women and one servant boy. All the other people were curious about those two women because they were wearing burqa and cannot see their faces. After that Queen and her whole company went to see Abdul in his apartment. Abdul explained to Her Majesty those two women are her wife and mother-in-law. Then after that Abdul showed his wife face to Queen and she said, what a beautiful wife you have. Later Queen herself was explaining to Prime Minister Abur the Durbar room located newly inside the palace, but he didn't like it at all and he was furious. Later Abdul and some English woman participated on act about scene in ancient Persia. Queen was thrilled about it and Karim did his best and it was a success, but rest of the people didn't like it at all. After that they were talking about the act and all of sudden her doctor said the mutiny, it was led by Muslim not by Hindus, but Queen wasn't aware of that. She thought mutiny in the act was done by Hindus. Then she was furious with Abdul. Then she called Abdul to talk about this and asked about him. Then he said, I am aware of that but I didn't want tell you for good reason. But she was furious. She said, you didn't tell me about your wife in the beginning, now this I cannot accept these type of behaviors. Then she commanded him to leave to India with his company. Queen was shattered so as he and her servant was so happy about this news, but later at night she went to his apartment and spoke with him knowing that he didn't tell her to protect her from the truth. Then she said you don't need leave, you can stay but don't do this again. Also she was worried about his wife and asked him everything is alright under the stairs, because they don't have any kids. In the next day Queen insisted to his private doctor to check upon Munchi's wife, then he went to do that but she was wearing her burqa in order to examine her. He has to see her taunj but she didn't expose her taunj too much. He was furious, then he said she was fine to Munchi. Later Sir Henry and Queen's son Bertie went to speak with Karim's friend and they offered him a great pension and on his way to India, but he has to give something in return, something inside about Abdul's biography. Something very cheesy. But his friend didn't betray him. He said to them, stick your stupid British Empire up your stinky royal bottom hole. Queen insisted to check Abdul fertility issue to his doctor. He found out Mukha has clap which leads to difficulty getting pregnant or infertility. Then Sir Henry Bertie and doctor went to tell this story to Queen. They didn't tell her that. Instead of that they told her he was low-born and uneducated person, also useless imposter. Queen was furious and ashamed about those three. And blamed. Then she said I am going to give knighthood position to Munchi. Then doctor was furious and said Munchi has gonorrhea. Then Queen replied you are a doctor, treat him. In later that night all of the servants gathered together and had a meeting about this case. They conspire to overthrow her if she give a knighthood to Munchi, so Miss Phipps agrees to tell about this matter to the Queen. Later she went to her room and spoke about this. Queen was furious. She said to have a meeting with all the members in the house in the next day. She said if any of you wishes to resign I will happily accept it without any unfortunate incidents. Not only that those who like to resign come forward right now, but no one came forward. She said I am going to make commander of the Royal Victorian Order as a token of appreciation. Later that Queen was fell off due to thirst and lack of sleep and stress. In that very moment Mohammed was died due to his sickness. Queen was participated to his friend's funeral. After that Queen told Munchi to leave this country because after she is gone there is no one to save him from other, but Munchi said I am not going back, because I am your Munchi and it is my duty to stand by my Queen. She loved his bravery and admired him, so with the time she got weaker day by day. Her illness grew over the time. She asked Abdul to see her while she was laying on her bed due to sickness. He touched her hand, then Queen told I want to talk with him alone. She said she was scared to Abdul, but Abdul said give yourself up without any regret, and in return you will gain the ocean. Give yourself away and the great sea you will be secure. Love is the whole, we are just pieces. In the end Abdul said goodbye. Queen replied goodbye my sweet son. Finally, Queen was passed away. Bertie in tears. Munchi started to crying after he saw Bertie because he knew she was gone. His close servant went to the gate and passed away the message to the rest of the world that Her Majesty was passed away at 6:30 precisely. Then he said, long live the Queen. After this Bertie was appointed as the new king. Then he sent away the Munchi and rest of his family, but every day he went see his Queen statue near the Taj Mahal and kissed her feet, spoke with her for hours.